Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the Gnarly Gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. This is the voice of Cincy Craft. This is a cool one. And we'll dive deep into some of this because I've had this idea for a very long time and have never been able to make it happen. And so I'm thrilled that somebody else was able to actually get this together and make it happen. There's one of the things that I hear the most from people when I'm out and hanging out and having beers with them is that Cincinnati needs a beer passport of some kind. Like, there's some cities that have really lame beer scenes that have somehow managed to put together a beer passport, and Cincinnati hasn't. So when I actually was talking to somebody at a brewery about the idea, and he's like, yeah, somebody just came in the other day and was talking about the fact that they were kind of working on it. And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's great. And here it is. It's been released. Jennifer Craig, do you go by Jennifer or Jen?
Anything you want to call me.
Okay. Welcome to the show. We'll dive into this a little bit, but before we get started with anything, we got to drink a beer because it is a beer podcast.
From the beer fridge.
From the beer fridge. There's no beer fridge, beer taps. It's, we just don't update things on the show. We're at Grainworks. They are unknowingly hosting us. I guess they'll figure it out here if somebody looks over. But so shout out to Grainworks for hosting the show. And I grabbed one that I've never had before. This is called Cincinnati False Spring. Anybody that lives in the area is well aware of what Cincinnati likes to do in March and April, where you get these little teases of warm weather, and then you get hit by 4 inches of snow the next day. It's a grapefruit IPA. It's fruity. It's juicy. It's kind of delicious. It's not a style that I typically gravitate towards. I look at an IPA, and I'm like, oh, and it's a fruited IPA. It's whatever, but it's almost 80 degrees outside today, and it sounded right, and it is. What are you drinking?
I am drinking the Helles here. I think is the Helles Real.
Helles Real, yeah. Also a great choice. Also a great summery choice. Crispy, easy to drink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great beer. I wonder how far they made it in the bracket this year with the.
I think they said it was number 3.
Yeah,
I think I read the article today.
Yeah, they made it pretty close. It's a great beer. A lot of people love it. All right, let's jump into this. Beer passport, brewery passport. How did this idea start? Why would you do this to yourself?
My husband and I did the Dayton Ale Trail.
Mm-hmm.
We had a blast, but, and it's a big but, we, number one, wanted to know a lot more about the breweries in the area because, as you know, Ale Trails charge the breweries to be in the book, so there's a limited number of breweries in the book. The other thing was they didn't have much information about the breweries in the book. They each had their own little page for an ad, but they were very general ads. They had their logo, maybe their address, their phone number, and website on it, and that was it.
Right.
So when we would go and do the Ale Trail, we would plan to visit 3 or 4 places in an afternoon, and we would want to have lunch at one of them. But we never knew if they had food or not. We'd have to dig into their websites to figure out where we could eat. And the worst part was there was nowhere to write anything in the book. There was only a place for them to stamp with that you had been there because it was a rewards-based program. So I got home, and I'm a graphic designer. So I started making a book just kind of for us, because I thought I would really love to know more about the breweries in Cincinnati. I mean, I've been to quite a few, but I knew there were a ton I knew nothing about.
Right.
And I started designing the thing, and I don't know, it just kind of felt like a natural progression to try to publish this and give it to the masses, because I came up with 66 breweries. I know there actually are more. I didn't go all the way out to some of the places that they consider to be Cincinnati brewing. But
it depends who you ask, too. Like,
that's true.
That's what's hard. Everybody's got kind of their own definition of what is Cincinnati and what's not.
Absolutely.
I've heard people argue that Northern Kentucky is not part of Cincinnati, which I think is crazy.
I do, too.
But I get it. I get where people are coming from. If you are like dead set on in the city limits being what you determine to be Cincinnati, there's a lot that aren't going to be on there.
We call it the greater Cincinnati area for a reason.
Well, and to me, that's part of what makes the city so cool. You go other places and like the city itself, it seems very small. When you're in Cincinnati, it feels much bigger.
It does.
You can't argue that when you're in Norwood, that you're not in Cincinnati. Technically, Norwood's its own little thing. It's a little island. It's not part of the city of Cincinnati on paper, but it's definitely Cincinnati.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of that around. What was your criteria to figure out where Cincinnati starts and where Cincinnati ends?
Well, I kind of didn't put anything from Indiana in because as far as I'm concerned, Indiana really kind of isn't Cincinnati, but that, like you said, everybody's got their own definition. Yeah. I went into northern Kentucky down to about Fort Thomas.
Okay.
I thought when you got much further down, you were getting a little too far away. And then I went out as far as like Morrow.
Okay.
But I figured, based on how far we're willing to drive, I thought all those places were reasonable,
right?
To be in the area.
I think when I first started my blog, I think my rule was like 20 miles or something from Fountain Square, I think.
Yeah.
And then it became 20-ish miles. And then I think now I believe now it's like 40-ish miles is what I consider Cincinnati. Because it's also like, if you drive north, we'll say, take New Ales or Gravel Road up in Middletown.
Yeah.
They're kind of right on that line. Like they're close enough to Dayton that Dayton can claim them too, and they're close enough to us that we can claim them too. So
hence the name Middletown.
Right.
I actually work in Middletown. I included them too. But they are on the Dayton Ale Trail too.
But then you've got that. There's a place out in Wilmington called Brausch Brewing. Brausch. Did you include them?
No.
I don't include them in Cincinnati because they're just too far out. But I figure they're close enough to Dayton. Dayton can have them in
right.
there. But I feel bad for Sons of Toil out in Mount Orab because they're not close to anything.
Right.
The closest city to them is Cincinnati, and so I consider them part of Cincinnati. So it becomes very hard to kind of.
It was.
And
difficult.
then if you include them, then you got to include Great Crescent over in Aurora because they're way closer than they. Like it gets very confusing.
It was a little complicated. Yeah.
Have you? You said there were some that you didn't include, maybe unknowingly or for other reasons. Have you gotten a lot of pushback from that from people or?
Not too much because I have so many included.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you earlier, the gentleman who does the lifestyle reporting at the Inquirer was like, "Oh, you didn't include Barleycorns Brewing, and they won our beer, what do you call that? The March Madness, the brackets,
the bracket,
the beer brackets." And I was like, "Oops."
It's you did leave room in there for people to write their own in, you said?
Yes, sir. I have 2 spots for you to write any places that open after the publication.
Or if you want to write Barleycorns in, you can.
If you want to, yes, you can.
So how long did this process take kind of starting to put it together until you were able to finally get it out there in people's hands?
About 5 months. Yeah, 5 months.
That's not bad.
Well, I worked very, very diligently on it. I did this as a second job, basically.
Right.
Every night I'd come home from work. Every night I would try to contact a brewery about using their logo.
Mm-hmm.
Started out with emails wherever I could find an email. Then I tried to follow up with phone calls. And then I wrote a letter and mailed it if I couldn't get them that way. And it was difficult. I am not going to lie. That was very, very, very much work.
Some brewers are very on top of things like that and can, in a second be like, "Oh, yep, that's fine. We get what you're doing." There's some breweries that either are very bad at email or returning phone calls, or just don't get it, or it's hard getting it to the right person to get the okay.
One brewery that shall remain unnamed gave me an email address for an owner, and it bounced back as a bad email. And I could not find an email for them anywhere. It was I had to go in person 3 days before publication.
That's funny.
To go down there and nail them down finally. And luckily a marketing person was actually there in the tap room that day, and we managed to make it happen.
Oh, that's great. I feel that pain so much. What are things after you've got it put together and everything, like, oh, you know what? Like we should have done this, or maybe we shouldn't have done it this way, or like, what is Volume 2 going to look like?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do for Volume 2. I am going to contact all the breweries. I'm going to find out what events they have at the brewery.
Yeah.
What I would like to do is have a legend with symbols that say things like trivia night, live music, pet friendly, different things like that. As of right now, there's a place where you can write your favorite beer and any notes you have about the location. So I would assume that a lot of people are going to write things like that under the notes.
Right.
My husband and I actually are using my book right now And we're writing down things like a great patio, kid friendly, wonderful menu, different things like that.
Well, and when you do that, then you start to see trends with stuff like, oh, this is something that people would be really interested in. Mm-hmm. It's hard to keep up on all that stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
Are you thinking you're going to do this yearly and just kind of keep new editions coming out each year?
Yes, annually is the plan. Yeah, for sure. That way I can add any of the places that opened after publication. And I want to delve in a little deeper. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, Happy Two Brewing. I don't know if you've been there yet or not, but we just went there and realized it's in a Mio's Pizza.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. And when I went on their website, it said nothing about food. And I'm like, they're in a pizza shop. They have food. So I'm going to be printing more books this year because there is a brew festival that I'm going to be going to, and I'm going to need more books. So I'm updating anything I find out like that, I'm changing in the new edition for this year.
Right. Where can people get the book, number one? We probably should have talked about that right at the top of things. But,
I have a web page. Okay. It's called Cincy Brew Guide. So, I'm sorry, say that again. CincyBrewGuide.com. Cincy with a Y.
Right.
I do Facebook ads and stuff as well. And I actually talked to someone today, and they had a great idea about coming up with a digital version, which I might actually do. I haven't done that yet, but I might do that.
An app would be amazing. That's something that I've toyed around with over the years. It's just super expensive and a pain in the butt.
And you got to know what you're doing, because I sure don't know how to do an app.
An app, you're going to find somebody that does.
Oh, yeah.
But an app that when you got to a tap room that has GPS and all that stuff, you're like, you check in. I think that would be really cool.
It would be very cool.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I would love to see happen one of these days. Untapped is fine to track what beers you drink. There really isn't a great one. With that being said, the Ohio Brewers Association, OCBA, they have the Ohio Untapped app, so you can get to breweries and check in, but they have to be members of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There we go with the limitations again.
Yeah, so like that's tends to be the problem with almost everything. And somebody comes up with a really cool idea, and then they're like, yeah, but only so and so can be a part of it, or only these people can be a part of it. It's like, oh no, you're missing the point.
Right.
And I struggle with that a lot of, especially when it comes to brewery passports. To me, as a drinker, the only reason I want a passport is so that I can go find new places.
Exactly.
That I can explore new places.
Exactly.
I can find places that I haven't been to. If you're keeping some of them out, it ruins it for me.
Yeah, me too. So, now, when I did my research, I did find out there is a Cincinnati Ale Trail, and it's through one of the tour places. Oh, they don't have it anymore?
I don't think that they're doing it anymore.
Okay. They still have it on the website.
Website's still active, but I don't think
but it was only like 20 places.
It was only a few places, and there were like 4 or 5 of them that were distilleries, which is also cool. Put them all in the same passport, and that's awesome. But now you have to include all of the distilleries.
Yes, exactly.
I want it all.
That was actually part of the challenge too, because you had some places that were breweries and distilleries, and it's like, do you include them? Do you not include them? I got a lot of tap houses that came up, and I'm like, but
trying to figure that out.
Trying
to figure that out is very difficult.
It really is.
There are definitely some tap rooms that, in my opinion, should be considered part of it. There's some that maybe shouldn't. There's places that are distilleries that, of course, they should be on there, and there's others like, oh well, I don't know. I mean, technically, if you are distilling, you're making beer first, but you walk in and you don't really have any beer that you make on tap. So like, it's all opinion.
Yeah, it is totally.
Do you have? So before you started this project, how many of the local breweries do you think you had been to?
Oh gosh.
Doesn't have to be exact. Give me an estimate.
Maybe like, I don't know, 13, something like that.
And then I assume that number has gone up since you started.
Yes, like I was saying, we're actually using my book, and I'm excited because I really enjoy using my book. So that makes me happy because it makes me know that other people will enjoy it as well.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, if someone buys this book, it is almost a guarantee they're going to hit all those places because that's the whole point. And I didn't charge anything to the breweries because I wanted everyone to be included that could be.
Right.
Because a lot of the small breweries can't afford to pay these astronomical fees to be in a ale trail.
Right.
It's
also like if you go to a city and you get the passport or whatever and you're like, all right, we're gonna go explore, and you find a brewery on your list and you go there and you sit down and you're like, oh, that was really great. And you're checking it off on your passport. And you look across the street and there's another brewery. Like, well, that's not on here. Then it makes you just start questioning everything about it. And you're like, well,
Right.
what else are they not telling me about something on here? Like, what else are they hiding from me? Just you start to not trust it.
Yeah.
Out of all of the places that you've been to, I hate this question when people ask it to me, but I'm still going to ask it to you. Are there any that stand out as a favorite, or places that you like more than others?
I was asked that question on Channel 19, and I panicked. I was like, well, it's going to sound kind of weird, but I love the food at Nine Giant.
That's not weird at all.
I mean,
there's nothing about that is weird.
You know, like we're talking about beer mostly, but they have amazing Brussels sprouts there.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, God, I love them.
When they first opened, and I assume they still make all their ketchup from scratch. I believe they do, everything from scratch. But they had this ketchup that absolutely just blew my mind, and I made up my mind. I'm like, this is gonna be one of those restaurants that I just come back to on a regular basis. I don't care what else is happening in my life. I need to keep coming here because this is so exciting.
Yeah.
Because of ketchup.
Yeah, their ketchup is very good.
The food that they do there is great. And even around the corner, the fermentorium,
yeah.
Tiki cocktails. Like I've fallen in love with going there and just not having a beer, like just drinking a tiki cocktail. Like it's really great that like we've got this neat variety of stuff in the city.
I have literally begged the fermentorium to put an open sign that lights up in their location because their windows are so dark that we were literally walking by there thinking they were closed until we saw a TV on it through the window, and then we went in there.
That's part of the fun. We don't want too many people coming in.
Well, but at the same time, we don't want it to close down either because they don't have any business.
No, but they, because it's part of Nine Giant, it's all kind of the same thing, and a busy brew pub around the corner means that the fermentorium is doing okay.
Yeah, as long as people know they're open.
What are some of the things for you that make a brewery good versus not good? I know that the term of a good brewery is still kind of
one of the things that my husband Ray and I don't like about breweries is when they're too industrial.
Sure.
When they feel like you're in a warehouse, there's no personality at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I'm a graphic designer or what, but the more personality and artisticness about the decor and the fun feel, the life in it.
At one time you could get away with that because just there being a brewery was the novelty of it.
Yes.
Like that was like, oh my gosh, they make their beer here. Like that was the cool part.
Yep.
Now, like we've accepted that it's a normal part of our life. You need to take that next step. And I think that there are still some people that come into this not really understanding or appreciating that.
Right.
That's also expensive to open a tap room, and I get that.
It is.
And maybe you have to grow into it a little bit, and I'll give people a little bit of wiggle room. If they just opened and it's a little too industrial, I can wait.
Right.
But if you've been open for a while.
Swine City, for instance, has the whole hippie thing going on.
Swine City is a beautiful example because it didn't have as much of that personality when they first opened.
Right.
They had to kind of let it develop.
Well, it's kind of like, what do they call this thing? A pole barn building or something like that?
Yeah.
It was a very basic generic building, but they've really done a good job.
They've done a great job
of making it like warm and inviting and got the hippie feel with the tie-dye and all that stuff. That's pretty cool. And Third Eye is really cool with the artwork that they've got, and Sonder in Westchester has some pretty neat colors and stuff going on in there.
Yeah, and they've started, both of their tap rooms have kind of started to take on this really cool kind of bright, kind of vibrant look to them,
I love it.
Which, not that they lacked personality when they opened, but that developed over time.
Yeah,
like that didn't exist.
It's
right
their
at
own
the
personality. Yeah, I really like that.
So I do think it's important to kind of. To allow a brewery to kind of develop some of that.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And then there's some breweries that just never do.
That is true, too.
What is your stance on alternative beverages? We'll say, cocktails and wine and whatever else, slushies, whatever those things in tap rooms. Do you love it? Do you hate it?
I like it only because if you have a group of friends that you're going out with, a bunch of you like craft beer, and it's a great idea to go to a brewery. It's something that you love. It's really fun. They got games. You can do whatever you want there. It's great. But you got that one friend.
It's time to leave that friend at home is what I say.
Well, yeah.
It's a joke, everybody. I wouldn't leave you at home.
I mean, like for instance, the gal on Channel 19 who was interviewing me is one of those people. She's from Milwaukee, doesn't like beer. So she asked me that question, is there somewhere out there for me? And I told that was
There's
my
a
answer.
lot.
I was like, a lot of them have cocktails and wine. But then again, I told her about Third Eye's Candy, which is that amazing sour milk stout. It's not a stout, but a milkshake sour. And it's raspberry and delicious. And she would love that.
I think my stance on it, which kind of shifts and develops over time, but like, I don't care. I love cocktails. I love wine. I love drinking anything. So I don't care if it's in the tap room. Sometimes I'll even drink it in the tap room. But I miss when people would come into a brewery and sit down and be like, I don't really like beer. What do you have for me? And it's like, oh, okay. And
you got
to try this.
you.
You got to try this. And they start pouring stuff for you. And like, then you get this little like kind of journey around the beer.
That is fun.
We've lost that a little bit. When somebody walks in and says, man, I don't really drink beer. I'm a wine drinker. What do you have for? Oh, we got wine.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
I get you.
Like it just changes.
Well, that's
some
why
of that.
I told her about the candy at Third Eye because I want somebody to try an alternative beer. A new beer that's not a traditional beer.
Right.
There's so much out there.
Oh my gosh, there's a ton, and it's always growing. It's always changing. You walk into a tap room that you were just in 2 weeks ago, and there's something new that you didn't have, before, and something to try, and something to kind of push your palate in a different direction.
Oh yeah, my husband and I are major flight fans.
Yeah,
we go and we do at least 1 or 2 flights and share them because I mean, heck, that's 8 beers we're trying. That's we love that. That's what we're all about.
There is a lot of people talking now about probably more industry side of talking about the hatred towards flights because if a place is busy, it's a pain in the butt for a bartender to pour a flight versus a pint.
Yeah, I can see that.
And there's like this weird kind of pushback happening to kind of not do flights as much anymore. And the amount of tap rooms that I've been in the last few years where it's like, oh no, we don't do flights. We just do.
That makes me sad.
Nine Giant, the brew pub side, they don't do flights over there.
Right.
They do over at the fermentorium, but you can get a half pour or a full pour, and that's it. And like,
and we do the half pours when that's the case.
Man, I love a flight. Like I love getting to try different things, and I respect that maybe your experience of a beer is different if you're drinking 4 ounces versus 8 ounces. But if it's still fun, it's still fun.
Well, there's something about trying 4-ounce pours versus saying, oh, let me try a little sip of that. I mean, it's just not the same. And you don't want to commit to a whole pint if it's something that you're not going to enjoy.
Sometimes it's also fun when you get a flight, you'll have 4 very different styles. And maybe that milkshake sour tastes one way when you first drink it. But then if you drink a different beer and then you come back to it, that changes the experience of it. And like it's fun kind of letting things play off of each other. And that's it's all part of the fun of drinking beer.
Right. I agree.
I think we should not lose the fun side of it.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was so much industry pushback on flights. I hadn't heard that.
It's I wouldn't say there's a ton of industry pushback, but it's definitely out, especially from bartenders more than anybody else.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, when they get really busy.
They get grumpy.
It's really funny. When I was first starting to do this, March 1st told me about them being in an ale trail.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said to me I thought was really interesting, ale trails, they are rewards based. Mm-hmm. You go, you get a stamp, you get stamped to everybody, and then you get a pint glass or something. Right. And you have a year to do it. And what they found was the people doing the ale trails come in, get a pint, leave. Yep. They don't linger. It's like, how fast can you do it?
Yeah, they're checking in stuff, yeah.
And that makes me sad. That makes me really sad. So, that's why this is not a rewards-based program. This is like do it as you want to do it. Take it as a leisurely exercise, as a challenge, whatever you want. But the goal is to sit and enjoy. Try some food, try some flights, have a couple pints. Take your time and enjoy it.
I think that's important, and I think that in today's world with social media and Untapped and all this stuff of just checking things off and being done with that thing, then the amount of people that won't drink a beer that's on tap because they already had it. Nope, I gotta try the new one, and that's the only thing that they're going to order them. Is way too high. It's missing the point of all of this, in my opinion. So
right.
I love that you kind of understand that and have embraced it and incorporated into it.
And I like the community. because it is a community.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we came here to Grainworks, not this past St. Patrick's Day, but the one before.
Mm-hmm.
We had so much fun. It was unreal. The people
wild
that we
here
met
on
here.
Patty's Day.
Oh my gosh, we met a bunch of new people
Yeah.
and had so much fun. I mean, we used to go to a bar that shall remain unnamed in Fairfield, which is a crazy place, really crazy on St. Patrick's Day. But we decided to try something a little bit more low key, or so we thought.
Right.
But we had so much fun. We have decided that we're doing craft breweries from now on for St. Patrick's Day.
It's fun. It's usually, there are some that have not really embraced it and still don't get it. This is one of those places that they definitely understand what they're doing.
For sure.
And I think that's something that I think a lot of people don't appreciate about all of this either, is that like if you want to go out for Patty's Day and you want that experience, here's the places that are going to fill that for you.
Right.
If you don't want that experience, here's the places that are going to fit that for you. And like there is really something for everybody on any given day, in any kind of mood you're in, any kind of, thing that you want.
It's true.
Which is why I hate asking the what's your favorite brewery question, because it just depends. Like, what am I looking for?
It does. I can't even really name a brewery for my favorite beer because
it's hard.
It is very hard. I mean, because every place you
on what I'm
go
looking for.
Has one or two that you love. It has a couple that you're like, I mean, it's just, we try so many different beers at so many different places.
Yeah.
It's hard to nail it down.
Yeah. What is does this kind of inspire you to do other things, kind of craft beer related with what you're doing? Does this give you any other ideas as far as projects that you could take on?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm still so knee deep in this that I haven't really thought.
It could kind of consume a lot of time for
it really
many years.
Because I do all the order fulfillment and stuff as well.
Oh,
so
right.
yeah. I mean, it's a large endeavor when you have a full-time job.
Right,
so.
right. I hope people understand that when they see things like that out there, that it's not just some big company that's just cranking out something just to have it out there and be done with it. A lot of these things are projects that actual beer lovers put out there because they really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And
like I was saying to you before, this is really a passion project for me more than a moneymaker necessarily.
Right.
That's why I paid to have this printed myself instead of having the breweries pay to be in it, because I just feel very passionately about getting exposure for all the breweries in Cincinnati.
Right.
When people open up my book and say, "Oh, I've never heard of that place. Where's that?" Even my brother, who ironically said to me, "Oh, I've been to all the breweries. Nobody needs a book like that, blah, 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 blah." When I posted on Facebook that I went to Wandering Monsters, he was like, "Oh, what's that? Where is that?" I said, "Buy my book and find out."
It's like it's right down the street from Paradise. Have you been there? Because it's like there's so many little places too that I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't know that was there."
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, yeah, that's the whole point of this.
Exactly.
It's to help you discover new things.
Exactly.
People can get it on the website. You said Cincy Brewery Guide.
No, Cincy Brew Guide.
CincyBrewGuide.com. I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody that just wants to click on something and not have to be typing in letters. You can click on it; it'll take you there. You can get it, and you can help support a lot of things. You can help support somebody that loves Cincinnati craft beer. You can help support your local breweries. You can have fun.
Yeah,
you can
that's
take
the point too.
You can take weekends and just go out and have fun. I've seen people, print out lists from websites and things like that, and they're crossing them off and stuff. And it's just like, we just want to go. Like there's a lot of people that send me text messages. Hey, what's opened in the last 6 months that I need to know about? All right, hang on. It's like there's an easier way for this, and this is definitely that easier way. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm very happy to see it, and I'm very happy that you did it. Thank you for providing this for us drinkers here in the city. And
my pleasure.
I hope everybody goes out and buys one.
Yeah, me too.
And goes out and drinks.
Yep, absolutely. Have fun with it.
Absolutely. That's it, guys. We'll be back next week. We're headed out to Bad Tom. And I know that a lot of you have your feelings about Bad Tom, and we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to dive in deep about where they're at, new ownership, all of that stuff, and give you all of the sneak peeks about what's coming from them. This show is brought to you by people like you. If you like it, go to thegnarlygnome.com/support, and you can support it that way. It's also brought to you by Cincy Beer Week, which we're not really talking about yet, but just keep it in the back of your head because there's some fun stuff coming with that. And we'll definitely talk about it soon. So, we'll see you guys next week, and share the show with a friend. That's how everything keeps growing and keeps going. I mean, going to thegnarlygnome.com/support also helps. Probably helps more because it keeps my wife happy. We will see you guys next week. It's Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft. Messed up the timing on the outro. We'll just keep talking about something. Talk about beer. Talk about breweries. We'll be back next week. Cincy Brewcast. The voice of Cincy Craft.